to talk about the user experience is, of course, very difficult to do in 15 minutes. But I'm sure all of you agree that, to have a successful TV service, you need to essentially have a great selection of content, and you need to have a user experience which will allow you to consume that content. So my focus here would be to talk about using the UX as a competitive advantage. I think there is generally too much focus on just the content side, which is, of course, very, very important. But I think the UX is of key importance for us at Exito. So just to talk about a few words about us, and then I will talk about the UX challenge, why I think this is difficult, and then I will just make sort of one point on what I think is really important, the section about the problem that is never really addressed, to use that as a competitive advantage. So I will address that one, and if anyone would like to talk more in detail, just reach out to me afterwards. So first of all, a few words about us. So many of you know Exito as sort of the company powering the video UX, so we work with the UX and deliver that for customers in the terms of products and services, where we have a range of tools and solutions to deliver that. We have more than 250 customers around the world, so we are available globally with 350 employees working with customers in 15 offices around the world. So again, going back to the core of this presentation, the UX, which is a way to consume the service, I believe that there are a few fundamental challenges in creating a UX. So first of all, the question I always get from customers, the first thing they say that, we want to work with you because you can deliver the best UX, because you just take whatever understanding you have of the market and you will deliver the best UX objectively in the market. But is there such a thing as a perfect service? Is there sort of a thing that could work for everyone? I don't think there is. And this is what we're trying to tell all of our customers, that in order to create a UX, you need to understand who the service is for. You need to understand your consumers. You need to understand how they're consuming the service. You need to understand the various use cases. And if you do that, that's when you can design the user experience that will be successful. And it's even more complex, as we will touch upon it in a short while. But fundamentally, the challenge, I believe, is how to combine rich features, many features, right, which you need to have as a competitive differentiator to the market, and also to have the simple and intuitive UI. So every consumer would like to have this sense of simplicity. How do I reach the content quickly and efficiently? But they also want to have access to all of these features. How do you combine these two fundamentally different parts of the UX? And I think there are possibilities of doing this, but it's of course very challenging. I think one of the key challenges we see in the market is what I would call the decision process. So every part of the experience from the consumer's point of view, there is a decision. Which button to press? How do I go back to the first page? What should I do now? How can I find this specific piece of content? So in the consumer's mind, there's always a decision process. And in order to create that UX, you need to understand how the consumer thinks and how they respond to those decision times. So what I think is the most common challenge for everyone creating a UX is the overchoice. So in this case here, of course, if you sort of select your ice cream flavors, it's theoretically better to have more flavors to choose from, but at some point it starts getting a bit ridiculous. The more choice you have, the less good UX it is, right? And then you end up with, vanilla and chocolate at the end. So overchoice is a common problem. Of course, the analogy for the video services would be, you have all these fantastic features to choose from. Dear customer, just click on the menus, the buttons in the menu, and we'll give you all of these features. Give the consumer the choice, and they will they will for sure manage to find out what they want to do. And even more, if we add the content aspect to this choice, it's even more complex, right? So no wonder that I think Simon mentioned that the consumers have a very low sort of net promoter scores for video services. And I think even if we look at the new services, the 36% net promoter score, that's pretty low, to be honest. So I think there is a room for improvement, and I think the confusion from consumers in the UX is something we can all do something about. So looking at then how to address this challenge. So the overchoice, how to combine many features in a service, and how to do that in a way that it's simple and intuitive. What I believe is that it's truly important to design with the target audience in mind, and that's easily said. But I think the key thing here is not just about the target audience, but it's about thinking like the target audience. So different consumers, they have different needs at different times. So the same consumer may be interested in one feature at one time and another feature at another time. And if you make this sort of mapping of your consumers' needs, then you end up with sort of actually understanding how the UX should work. Right? So you can theoretically think about a case where if you can meet those needs from the consumer at the right time, it will be a better experience for that consumer at that time. So some sort of adaptive and intelligent user experience would help solve some of those challenges for that consumer. So no one wants to remove features, right? But it may be right to remove the features at certain times, so for certain target groups. I mean, you're not removing them, but you're removing them, from in the face, in the UX. You can always find them. So I think that sort of mentality would help to design a better UX for consumers. So just a few examples here. So I took this example from Lego, just to give some sort of outside view on sort of how the user experience would work for a target audience. So Lego, of course, is the global toy brand, and they have sort of kids as a target group. And you may think that kids is just one target group. They behave in the same way. No. There are multiple different categories of children, and they behave and use the toys in different ways. So the key thing is, of course, to define the adaptive UX for these different kids. And you can, of course, in this case, they are sort of segmented a bit based on which type of Lego brand they're interested in. But in addition to that, there is also the element of certain very, very young kids may struggle with certain platforms, and certain older kids, they move on to other types of platforms. So you have this mapping of sort of devices and target groups that is pretty challenging. So this specific case with Lego was for us, it was extremely interesting because it was in our mind, before we started, it was sort of a clear target group, but it emerged to be sort of multiple target groups and a pretty advanced adaptive UX for those different target groups. I think you get the picture. If we move on, so that's one example of how you can sort of think about different target groups. The other thing that I think is important is what I would call just-in-time features. Right? So one aspect of a dynamic UX is to adapt the features to different target groups. And another one would be to adapt the UX based on a time. So I think what is important to realize is that all features are not important for all consumers at all times. And for example, one important use case, just to get you to start thinking here, is of course a new subscriber is probably not someone you should throw all the advanced features at immediately. They may only be interested in certain very basic features. Whereas a very, very heavy user that has a certain behavioral pattern, you may want to expose other features to them. You may want to promote features in different ways. So to think about how can the user experience be dynamic enough to present the UX features in a dynamic way, I think is an excellent way of improving customer satisfaction. I have one example of that one, and I decided to take one of our own products. The Exito VR Go is essentially a OTT application suite using sort of our full solution range, so it's dynamically powered and so on. But the key thing is that it's essentially one application with hundreds of deployments, right? So we can deploy this for any types of customers. And to do this, of course, we need to eat our own dog food. We need to make the application essentially endlessly configurable, right? So every type of feature combination should be possible to turn on and turn off. We need to be able to schedule parts of the application to appear at certain times. You know, maybe there is a Friday night section of the application that will only appear Friday night. Maybe there is a kids section in the morning that will appear. Maybe there are sort of certain other features that will turn on and turn off. So the complete sort of configurability of the application stack is one of the key elements of something like this. And this is something we are discussing with many of our customers that, well, I think the element is not about just adding more features. It's also about sort of presenting the features in a better way. So to conclude, instead of just saying that the competitive advantage for UX are these 5 things, I think for me, it's not just a specific UX. You know, you should use colors like this, or fonts should be bigger than 18 pixels, or whatever. It's about the ability to adapt and learn from the consumer behavior and present a UX to meet those requirements for that target audience. That's the competitive advantage. And I think no one is really doing this really well in the market at the moment. And I think there is room for all of you to use that as a competitive advantage in your specific markets. That's it. I will be here all day, so just reach out if you have any questions.
Michael, that's fantastic.
Yeah?
You've amazingly kept to time. So we have time for a couple of questions if anybody has any burning things they'd like to ask. Any questions? Got one here. Can you just introduce yourself and tell us where you're from before you ask it?
It's Tom Davidson from Niche Media Global. I completely agree and understand what you're saying around the kind of evolving that experience. I guess my question is for the kind of medium to smaller content owners, is that sort of solution financially accessible?
You're making the pitch for me. That's exactly why we have launched the VR Go solution. Yes, it is. I think, of course, if you want to create sort of this incredibly custom sort of intelligent UX, no. But you know, to create the 15, 20 most common use cases, yes, it is possible.
Time for another one, if anyone has anything else. Got one down here. Cheeky from a panelist.
Daniel Hesselbart, Unity Media in Germany. I'm wondering that dynamic adaptation of user experience, how much of it can be done by a machine and how much manpower would you need?
That's a good question. You can theoretically, you know, create some sort of business analytics to you know, automatically adapt, you know, like with artificial intelligence type of thing. I personally don't believe that we're there yet. I think it is necessary for some sort of editor to create the business rules. You need to measure if they work out well. You can do sort of A/B testing, you know, try this business rules 1 week, or you know, try different business rules for half of your population and just see what works best. But there has to be some sort of manual overlay, I think, in the near future.
All right, we're just about timed out. Michael, I think, is here probably today and all day tomorrow?
Today.
All day today, so grab him. It's well worth 5 minutes of your time. Michael, thank you so much. That was great.
Thanks, John.